Hi, trainees. I promised you some additional instructional strategies for your chart, and I want to give them to you today so that you can begin exploring with them and trying them out with the children in your life. Now, when a child first starts using the chart, they simply need to tap the chart until they seem to really know the chart. And at that point, then it's a good idea to layer on some of these instructional strategies. Why do we want to layer on instructional strategies? Because it gives the children an opportunity to be able to do something different with this tool that they're very familiar with. And at the same time, it gives you an opportunity to be able to do some of that diagnostic piece, that covert observation, where you get some information about what they know and what they don't know. So I'm going to switch myself over to my chart so that you can take a look and see what it is that I'm doing. So when a child is first tapping their chart, I often put them in plastic sleeves so they don't get dirty. When a child is first tapping their chart, they're going to go through it until they can go through and go A, apple, A, B, bat, B, C, cat, K, CI, CE, CY, city, and so on. One of the things that you can do, regardless of whether you're doing the endings or not, is start wherever the child has left off, and instead of tapping their chart starting at A and going down, they can start at Z and go backwards. That's a new challenge for them. It's something new and different and really draws their attention to their chart. And you get to see which letters it is that they are like, I knew it going this way, but when I go this way, it's a little tricky. Sometimes I've had children decide they want to tap their chart in a circle. It doesn't really matter. We want them to be able to know that H hat is H hat. No matter what order it comes in, mixing up the order helps them to be able to do that. Another strategy that you can use is to call out a sound and have them find the letter on the chart. So you remember that we did sound dictation where we called out the sounds and the child had to write it. One step easier is to call out the sound and for the child to find it on their chart. So this is a middle skill between chart tapping and sound dictation. Not all children need this skill. They don't need to practice it this way, but sometimes it's just even fun to do it a little bit differently. Or if you have a child for whom handwriting makes them want to curl up in a ball and cry, and you want to skip doing handwriting in the first 2 minutes of your lesson, then go ahead and do this. Call the sound out, and the child can put an X over. Call out and the child says back to you and then finds z. The child says z. You want the child to make the sound in their mouth because that helps to activate the brain and helps them to be able to keep their attention focused on what sound they're looking for. And they can find z, the two sounds of z. If they get stuck, you can give them the picture cue. Or, for instance, if I said ol and my child said ol and they couldn't find it, I would say it's on this row, and I would give them a clue which row to look on. And if they're really stuck, I'll say, let's tap what's in this row. And we would go through and tap every one of them until we found L, lion, ol. L, lion, ol. So this is a strategy that you can use with this alphabet chart or the first chart. You can take your charts out after you are ready to do the blends chart. You can have your blends chart out as well. Let me just grab my blends chart out of my training manual. Ooh, I want to keep my You can take out two charts. and have children find sounds across two charts. That adds another layer of difficulty. So after the child is the master of the first chart and has tapped the blends chart for many weeks and is pretty confident at being able to find things independently on here, you can begin to say what two things, and this is super fun for the children, what two things say f, and the child finds F fish, and then they go, where is another f? And we'll tell them it's in this column. Can you find what says f? And if they can't find it, we go back and tap CH chair ch. Does that say f? Say f. Okay, let's see. Can you tap it? And the child will tap PH phone f. And if they don't quite get that, and they almost always do, yes, I hear f, and the child marks it. All right, let's find two things that say ch. Can you make the sound? And the child will make the sound, and they might be right next to ch, a note. Yes, that says ch. What else says ch? It's in this row over here. And the child might look, and you want to wait and give them lots of time to process and think. Wait until they just look like they don't know, and say, want a hint? And if it's a yes, then you go through it and you find ch. You can also say what says n and what says er. Those are some pieces that are similar between those two charts. So this is a second way that you can use your charts. It's kind of like sound dictation, but the child isn't having to write the letters. They are simply finding it on the chart, which is also a great way to orient your child to the chart, so that when they're spelling and they have their blends chart out and they're spelling a word like grasp and they put it on their arm, asp. What says gur? They have their blends chart out. They're like, oh, that says gur. And they write gur on their paper. Asp. What says sp on my chart? Oh, I know, because I have played with my chart, explored my chart, and done this work. And I'm calling this work play because it feels like it's play when we do it with the children. So that's another strategy for how you can use your chart. On your team's chart, I'll just go ahead and show you. On your team's chart, it gets to even be more fun, because after a child has tapped this chart that has the vowel teams on it and has the bossy R's, that after a child has tapped this chart for many, many weeks and can go A, I, paint A, Y, hey, A, U, August, A, W, saw, E, A, wheat, A, and they're tapping it as they go along like nobody's business. They have started moving those sound symbol connections into long-term memory. You can come back and do this. You can say, can you find all the things on here that say A? Oh, now we've hit on something. What says A? And as you get more familiar with the chart, you'll be able to cue them. It's in the first two rows. There are some things here that say A. Can you find them? And they might find their A and find their A and find their A. And then they're stuck. And that's when you'll say to them, there's one more in this row. Let's tap the things that are left. And they can go through and tap them and find them. There's one more in this row. Let's find it. And they'll find it and they'll tap it. Let's tap all the things that say A. A, Y, paint. Sorry, A, I, paint A, Y, hey, A, E, A, great A, E, I, vein A, E, I, G, H, 8, A, E, Y, they, A. All those things say A. But you know what's great about our chart? The things that are most common come first. These are in very few words. And that's something that you as teachers and tutors will learn over time and be able to cue those kids. But you could do E and I and O, and there's things that say oi and ah and ooh. So there are many different ways to explore this chart with the child with the different sounds. And of course, I wouldn't do all of them on any given day. This is a 60-second addition to your sound dictation. It can be, or it can be in place of your sound dictation if it seems like that would be a good choice for your child on any given day. Lastly, I will say that the syllables chart is not a chart that we teach in any one particular place in the Brain Friendly Reading Lessons curriculum, but it has on it closed syllables, open syllables, silent E syllables, and U should be underneath, but it just didn't work out that way. So U is off to the side, which is good because U consonant E actually makes two sounds. And then on this piece is the consonant plus E, so LE syllable type. And then we included the three sounds of ED because those are pretty tricky for kids. So on this one page, we have examples of the sound of the vowels in the closed syllable, in the open syllable, and in the silent E, the vowel consonant E. Plus, we have consonant LE. Guess what? There are only two other syllable types, and it is the teams and the R-controlled vowels. We can call those bossy R's. These are vowel teams. There's actually something in here called diphthongs, but we don't need to teach those to children. These are two vowels that make one sound. That's what all of these are. They're two vowels that make one sound. These are two letters that make one sound. When your children have tapped the syllables chart and they tap the teams chart, then the fun really begins. Because when you say, can you mark all the things that say O on your two charts? They are going to know that OA boat O and OE to O say O, but so does O in an open syllable, and O consonant E says O. Guess what? These are the most common ways that we hear O in a word. O in an open syllable and O consonant E. These are two vowel teams, right? So when we do this work with the children, it's an opportunity to not only practice the sound symbol connection with them, but also to throw in review, to throw in some reminder with them, to do some questioning of their understanding. So for instance, in this case, if I had taught OA and OE to a child, I would say, which one comes in the middle usually? Is it this one or this one? And they would say this one. Which one comes at the end of words usually? This one. So that they begin to be able to assign more understanding of these vowel teams than just the sound when we are many, 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 many lessons deep. And we use our charts as a way to connect prior learning back again to the charts. And we use the charts as a way to talk to the children about the things they've learned. Think of these as schemas for them to be able to hang all of their, to compartmentalize and organize all their understanding, or to hang all their little pieces of knowledge in a very organized way on that pegboard in their mind. Whatever analogy you want to use that makes sense to you about what a schema means, but it's just ultimately a very organized, easy to understand way that the child is able to store information so that then they can go back and retrieve the information. And the tools become, the charts become a tool for the child to be able to use to be independent, for storing this information and then for retrieving the information. And children get to the point where when they've learned their teams chart forward and they've learned their teams chart backwards and they've learned their teams chart up and down the rows, that then you can say to the child, I'm just going to ask you to say the sound. And you could do this all the way back here. I'm just modeling this with the teams chart. I just want you to say the sound. Can you just say the sound? We're not going to tap it anymore. And the child goes, a, b, k, s, d, e, f, g, j, h, I, and so on. That is the goal. The goal is for the child to be able to recall the sound on sight. You want to take it up a notch? Cover the pictures. A, b, k, s, d, e, f. If you want to make it even more challenging, you put all of these letters on cards with no pictures and you do them in random order. And that is the goal. That is usually the starting point of most Orton Gillingham trainings. That's the goal of our work. We have many layers of scaffolding the work, the learning, so that the child has a way to be able to store the information and retrieve the information independently and have access to everything there is to know inside of a few months. And the child doesn't have to wait for it all to be delivered to them over the course of several years. So I'll finish with a story. One of my boys, who's a middle schooler, he was 7th grade when he started reading at about a 5th grade level. He tapped his charts, has been tapping his charts, and really pushing towards having 100% automaticity, with the hardest part for him and other children, which is the teens. He tapped his chart forward, backwards, upside down, every way you could think of with the pictures. Then his mom made a chart for him that had no pictures, and he would go through it: A, E, A, and he'd scooch it down, and he would go E, and then he'd have to cheat. Is that E? Yeah. E, A, U, E, A. Is that right? Yeah. And that's what he would do with no pictures. Then what she did was mix all of it up, and he had to just be able to go with these in random order, be able to say the sounds as he saw them. So, and then if he got to one where there was 2, he had to say first choice sound, which is what the 1 means, that it's the first choice sound, is OU cloud ow. So he'd have to say ow. And the second choice sound is ooh, OU soup ooh. So if he saw this, he would say ow ooh. Now, there is a game for this, just like there's a game for the first chart and the blends chart. There's a game where the pictures are on one card and the letters are on the other card, and you can play this game play it as a Go Fish game too. So that just gives you another way to practice the charts. But if the kids will happily just tap the charts, then just tap the chart. You don't have to do all of the extras. When you do sound dictation with the children, they happily hear the sound and write it. You don't have to use anything that I've taught you today. Everything that I've taught you today is auxiliary to the program and helpful when you run into a situation with a child who needs the intermediary step, that they're not able to just tap the charts and then write the letters for the sound dictation portion. All right, so hopefully you have just learned about 10 different tricks that you can start using today with your chart tapping, and to be able to practice those with somebody else in your life, whether it's a child or even an adult, because I promise you, they do not know all those vowel teams. That find somebody else to practice with, and as you practice with it, you will be storing it from your short-term memory into your long-term memory. So when you're in a situation with a child and you run into a block with them, you're able to reach into your handy toolkit and try something out and observe what happens and make adjustments and do it slightly different the next day if need be. Okay? All right, so this wraps up your short video on chart extensions. And if you have any questions about that, come into the Monday night group coaching call, and I'll be happy to talk to you about any questions that you might have about chart tapping. All right.